Jacob Cervantes, welcome, brother.
Welcome. Wow. Appreciate you guys bringing me in.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you reached out a couple weeks ago. It was funny. I was thinking about it and you were talking about it. It was about 2-3 years ago. We actually met in the podcast studio, not for a podcast, but I see your name all over the place, and we were just catching up beforehand of what you're doing, who you're doing it with, and kind of your business. But I'd like to just kind of jump in. Who is Jacob?
Most people know me as kind of an entrepreneur. I got a pretty robust background, a lot of different industries. Started off, obviously, I have a background in human performance, graduated from Washburn University with a kinesiology degree, sports management, kind of built out into Lincoln once I graduated in 2014. Had my daughter, my princess Adrena. She kind of brought me home. It's a funny story. I actually had a gig right out with Washburn. I had interned under my head coach, stuck me with my strength coach. Having the background in human movement kinesiology kind of paired well. And, I decided to take that route. I thought I was going to end up being a football coach. I mean, that's what I was. I was a football player coming up through high school. It's how I self-identified. As my career started going towards completion within the collegiate space, I knew quickly that I wasn't going to be in the pros. Unfortunately,
that's a hard thing to swallow.
Yeah.
Did you have that in your head that there was a strong possibility of being pro?
1,000%.
Hell yeah, I still do.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I think most players that go into the collegiate space, unless they're very mature mentally, they're going to think that they have the opportunity, because you have to have that kind of passion and belief to excel at that level. And you can go all the way down the chain. You can find guys that go from NAIA, D2, D3 that end up making it in the pros. And I have friends, that have done really well. There's no discrimination on that. It's not, I think they have to kind of correlate if you're going to have that kind of success at that level, because it's very competitive. I definitely thought, coming up, it was a childhood dream, to play, at that level. Hindsight, injuries, reality, a lot of different things, anatomy, physiology, genetics, you can go down the line. I think, going through Washburn and getting that experience, kind of gave me the foundation that I needed to excel, as an entrepreneur. I always knew from a young age I was going to work for myself. I wanted to be kind of my own boss and really move the needle. And I knew the only way you could do that was by taking control. And man, I've probably worked 30 jobs before I was 20. I was the kid dragging the lawnmower, across the street. I sell you almost on, midget football popcorn. That was the thing. We drive around.
When did you start doing that? When was your first job? What was it?
I want to say around my first legal job was in Fluent. I think they were hiring people at like 13 back then. Influent. It was a telemarketing service. Okay. It was kind of the thing that most of our friends around the area did. And telemarketing, you're selling bank insurance and stuff like that over the phone.
Yep.
Really, you were just more of a buffer. Get them to a closer and just get people interested. But I've had uncles that would hire us for labor, whatever, odd jobs here, paint, you name it. Was mowing. My first real job was mowing my neighbor's lawns.
How old was that? That was your first time transacting for money, trading time for dollars?
Probably, around 10 years old.
Cool.
Awesome. My mom always tells, it's like, I've just had that in me, single mother. That's what kind of instilled to want to drive towards helping, drive income into the household. I got 4 brothers, 3 other brothers, were 4 boys. It had just been inside me, from a jump. Like, it wasn't that I had seen it before. I really didn't know what it was. And through time, I had to go through some trials and tribulations in certain areas to figure out that, hey man, this is kind of normal, whether the world thinks it is or not, and that, learned how to kind of harness it and drive it into different sectors. And the curiosity and the confidence, again, a lot of those things stemmed from playing, collegiate football or football in general, just at a high level.
I want to stop you right there. So your drive to succeed, but you explained it as innate, but I think we kind of passed over maybe the work ethic that your mom instilled in you.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who've been in that position where, you don't know which direction to go. And I think a lot of it has to do with how you were raised.
Yeah. Single mother, providing for four boys. And we kind of discussed it's, we grew up on government aid, she worked 40 hours. She just told me yesterday, matter of fact, we're having a conversation. She worked for $4 an hour, right? In our lifetime, right? Yeah. I'm 34, she's not much older. Than probably your parents, but, didn't graduate, didn't go to college, was a single woman. And we know how, within the struggles of the employment world, it was a lot worse then, obviously, than it is now. And they're making strides and stuff like that. But, it's, she worked nonstop. She'd work night jobs, whatever. We never went without. That's one thing. It's always, based off perception.
She had self-sacrifice. She sacrificed a lot.
She sacrificed a lot. That's too, it's like the environment we grew up in, we're not in Chicago or St. Louis, by any means, but we definitely grew up in a little rougher part of Lincoln, and our family was pretty rough, So we grew up seeing and knowing about the wrong things and being sold that it was right. And through that environment, the only thing that really kind of kept me and my brothers, we all graduated high school, went to college. My brothers do well. They have different odds and ends, businesses of their own, or they're coaching or, doing something more impactful outside themselves.
What's your mom's name?
Michelle.
Shout out to Michelle.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
She's going to like that. She's my angel, a gift from God, because, without her love, that was the only thing holding me back from probably doing something really bad, to cause her disappointment. Mm-hmm. Growing up in that environment, there was trouble at every corner, had plenty of options. It was more, I'm very spiritual, being a faith-based guy. And it was more so like, evil will pull its way in any capacity. And at that time, coming up in that environment, that was kind of where we were raised. You didn't really know any different. Your elders were manipulative. They were, abusive. And with that being said, I had to grow up fast. And, my goal was pretty much to retire her at some point. And, I moved home in 14, kind of in the summer. Bought a house. That was probably the best thing I ever did. At 24, sure. I was lucky enough to have put away some money and made that decision. I had always just wanted a home for us. We grew up my entire life renting.
So this was the house with your mom?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So,
my man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So right now she works for me. I take care of her, and she's kind of semi-retired. She's a phenomenal grandma. Best grandma in the world, so she helps take care of my 10-year-old. And without her, I definitely don't have any of the success, seeing her, like you had said, Chris, her work ethic instilled in me. And it's like, I base everything off of my own perception, not anybody else's. I seen her work. I seen her sacrifice. It drove me to a point where I knew I had to take action. I didn't know where it was going or how, but I knew at some point I was going to get to a point where I could take care of her. I could pay her back.
That's amazing, man. My mom, I reflect back a lot, and there was just me. I was an only child. So, and, I have a dad, he was there, but my mom was the workhorse of the family. She had 2 to 3 jobs, waiting tables. She did go to college, but, she'd pick up waitress jobs, 6 nights a week, work a double shift, work a full-time job. And I think, and my parents always rented when they first bought a house, they were in their 50s, and it was like a $99,000 home that they were able to put $0 down in Belen, New Mexico. So, reflecting on that with, your real estate portfolio, mine, it's kind of crazy that, you bought a house at 24. I had bought one at 24 when, just as easily I could have been on the wrong side of the tracks as well. Mm-hmm. But us being surrounded by those things, there really is 2 routes, but having that good grounded person being our mothers, because I saw her work so much. I saw the adversity and many people complain about work, that they don't want to do it. They'd rather be doing something else. For me, it was one, just working was a way to show just basically respect for my mom and those things that she had put forth, as well as I always had it in my head too, that I'm not going to let her grow old, be poor, and be alone. Like, I'm going to work my ass off so that there's going to be funds available for her based on her sacrifices. And I see the same thing in you. And it's funny. You talk about mowing lawns at 10, I was wholesaling candy in 5th grade. I think my first business she had helped me with. Most kids have lemonade stands. I had, it was called Crazy Collins Cupcake Corner, 7 years old, selling slushies, cupcakes, whatever. But, just going up to her, giving her some money after, and, she didn't need it. She was thankful, but just having that kind of hero in your life, I think it's the why factor. Mm-hmm. So many individuals, they lack a why, but once you can really find that why, I know Chris and I mean, why we got into real estate, you talk about time freedom, money, et cetera. Time freedom is a big piece of it, but what do you do with that time freedom? And it's being with your family. It's taking care of your family. It's if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, is there going to be something that provides them some security? Because with me being gone, that's going to create obviously a big hole in their lives. But as long as this factor, this piece is taking care of them, it's those things that drive us. So that's awesome what Michelle did for you.
Yeah. I till this day, I'm going to work hard and continue to grow, and in hopes of giving her a life worthwhile, giving my daughter the same opportunity. And obviously it'll be structured. I'm not into giving anything to anyone for nothing, right? And everything in life. I think that, if you don't work for it, you can't really appreciate it. And, for me, I had to work for every single thing that I, have gotten, by the grace of God, all the opportunities. People talk about good luck and stuff like that. And I mean, it takes, some of that, but a lot of it is all the things stacking. And I know you guys have been through probably hell and back with a lot of the bigger projects and learning some of the first, big, massive deals and the risks. And those are the things that will pay off on the next one, right? And seeing that and taking that as to a holistic overview of life is kind of how I've gotten to this seat with you guys, and the friendships that I have and the businesses that I've had and the intros of different markets is all based on the fundamentals, like we just discussed, of just being appreciative, working hard, doing right by people, and being a people person. And I think you gain knowledge through life experiences, and each one is compelling to the next, right? To the next opportunity. And if you can see it and you can know that, hey, this may be hard right now, and we didn't see that coming, or we're at risk of failing right now, and you decide that to take that next step, I think too, again, one of the reasons why I wanted to come in is just to showcase that it can be done. I mean, I started in the dugout. I started, on the sideline. Yeah. I didn't have any capital, didn't have any network. And I've utilized this tool, this real estate tool, to get to a point where, I think I'm on the right track. And again, reaching out to you is just always trying to find specialists in the area. Right. And then you guys even being able to have this platform is great, because I was actually on the podcast, platform searching of like, I want to learn right now. I'm in a phase of learning, and winter's, a little slower for us. I like to always try to, at the back end of the year, pick up something or dive into an area. And, you guys have a strong presence online. And that was kind of the main reason, was like we had crossed paths, obviously met before, and it was like time to recircle and see what you guys had going on, see if there were some things that I could utilize and learn from. And but yeah, man.
Put those in front of you. All right. Might as well put that out there. Bling, bling, y'all.
That's awesome, man. When did you make the transition from going to kinesiology to entrepreneurship? What did that look like? And kind of describe I'm interested in your mindset during that, just kind of, one, for the age that you were at. It also sounds like, you have a daughter, so you left some stability, I'm assuming, to, go into the unknown.
Yeah. So I had that opportunity. I was supposed to report, I want to say in August of 14, I was signed as the assistant D-line coach. I played defensive line. I'd been there, red shirt, medical, then did the internship.
This is at Nebraska?
No, this is at Washburn.
Well, this is at Washburn. Okay,
where
cool.
I played.
Yep.
And so I was ready, set. Drina came in 2014, March, kind of out of the blue. Had been with a girl, her mother, for a long period of time in high school, and then we dated through college. Had split up and kind of went about our ways. And, she came and she really altered the trajectory of my career and my life. And I had that opportunity, and it was probably the safe bet of like going into a salaried position, something I was very familiar with. I had done all the hard work. It was like the thing I, had thought. And I had come home to spend the summer with her after I graduated, and I already had signed the contract. And big shout out to Craig Shirk. He actually just, Washburn's going in a different direction, so this would be his last season. But he had given me an opportunity to coach there, as a paid. He knew that she had just been born. He's a great guy. Probably didn't have to give me an opportunity like that right out the gate with probably little to no experience outside of me playing there. But
and your education.
And my education.
And his trust in you as a person.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, seeing that at that time, like, putting her first was the best thing I could have done. I know what it was like to be a coach. I had watched them. I've watched how their lives were, and a lot of time away from home, as you know, and being in that
high
space.
Stress,
high stress,
very stressful,
very, very stressful, and instability of like, I'm seeing it, at Nebraska, I mean, those guys are on the hot plate right now, and it sucks. I know the time and the dedication that it goes into that, but yeah, knowing at that point that, I needed to be there for her was because a lot to do with the lack of father, being when I grew up. I didn't have a father. My mother was dad and mom. So having that opportunity, spending the time with her, I called him probably mid to late July. I was supposed to report probably this first week of August. And he's like, hey, man, you're doing the right thing, and we respect that.
Wow.
We'll cancel it out. No harm, no foul. That's great. I'm pretty sure it was legal beagle stuff that they could have did to me and made it hard. But that was the best decision. Then I moved home, and it was like, kind of like, well, let's utilize my talents, and had been praying about it. And luckily a mentor friend of mine, who had worked for, when I was in high school, Jerry Russell, owner of Bristol Windows, gave me a lot of opportunity through high school. I mean, the amount of money I made with him, I surpassed my mom's income by the time I was probably 16, 17. Wow. I was working on the phone doing sales for window company after practice. We would run it till about 9 at night because people didn't want to get calls on the phone. And he always had this thing, hey man, when you graduate, you come back and work, run my company. I'd built a canvassing crew by the time I graduated for him. We were actually up here in Omaha and got to about 3 different vans. So I had a lot of experience in working and growing in sales. But so I called him, I was like, hey, I got to do something. He's like, man, I was just praying. My son, he's coming up, he's younger. We're looking to get him some training. And I had just done, obviously, the strength coach at my university was going through divorce. So my head coach did the intern with him. He stuck me with the strength and conditioning sector, and they needed help there. And I had just got done, obviously playing. So I turned over from a teammate to a coach, like literally like that. And they kind of threw me into the fire. And that's where I found like the passion behind strength and conditioning. The strength coach gets to spend all year developing these young people. And I had the greatest, relationship with my strength coach, David Troop. And, I got to see and be a part of what that looks like. And the hardest part was going from being on the field as a teammate with some of these guys to being like, hey, we got to work, this is what we got to get done, and earning their respect, and going through that process. But yeah, it was very unique. Very unique situation, but
it's amazing how influential all these people have been.
I was just thinking that.
You talk about your mom, obviously parents drive that a lot, but you're able to sit here and name off full names of everybody throughout your life that have such a positive influence on you. And that's just so powerful. I don't mean to make a connection to something that's a little more high level, but you talk about masterminds or meetups or just friend groups. It's amazing how just finding the right people in your life can guide you on the right direction. Sounds like you've made a lot of good decisions. I think you're holding back a little bit on luck. I think you're you could have had one bad egg as a coach.
Yeah.
Drive you in the wrong direction, but it sounds like you.
Luck to me is God's grace. By the grace of God, he gave me the mother. By the grace of God, he put me at Washburn away from Nebraska, where I could have easily walked on and did the whole shebang. I probably wasn't ready for that. Academically, I struggled. They had smaller class sizes. So, again, going back to that analogy of just your trials and tribulations, stacking and learning the lessons and going through the fire. It's like, hey man, those are, it takes maturity. It takes experience to understand that even a bad situation can be good. And, early on, that's kind of all we had to roll on, man. And, but yeah, going back, it's a lot of people. Just the people that looked out for me and gave me opportunity. And, I was there to meet it though. I was there willing to put in the work. I was there willing to show up and be eager to reach out to you, calling and being like, hey man, I want to meet with you. I don't know what we're going to talk about. And then you're like, hey, let's
jump on the podcast.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So I've been on this kick lately, and it's been something. So I've got a coach, but also just a lot of studying as I started off today, trying to figure everything out. I'm like, well, the first thing I'm trying to figure out is the thing between both of my ears, like really having control of that, understanding my emotions, how I perceive things. And David Hawkins has this book called Letting Go, and it goes through the levels of consciousness. At the lowest end, I believe it's apathy. On the highest end, it's enlightenment. And there's different ways that people view the world of the same situation. And many people in your situation, at least growing up, you focused on the positivity of Michelle and your mother, and you chose to want to be the best son possible for her. There are other individuals that would have focused on not having a father and their hatred for the situation, and that would have been what consumed them. But you chose that path. Similar to any of your injuries or any things that could be perceived setbacks, you see those as positive items based on, I'm not going to say limitations, but opportunities for growth that are better suited for you, and chose to have the positive outlook on those. And I think that's just so powerful, the reframing in which you have done to make the best out of every situation that's thrown at you.
Yeah.
How do you instill that in your daughter?
Every morning we drive to school and we have conversations and we talk about, each day you get to change your mind. Like yesterday it was real raining over there and it was gloomy, and it was like, it's just, the weather, right? The weather can alter your mood. I challenge her almost every day to think like, we have a saying, think positive. Positive attracts positive, negative attracts negative. The fundamental outlook to thinking that something outside my inner self can alter my mood is a weakness. Essentially, I'm a big stoicism guy.
Love it.
When you allow things on the outside to interrupt the inside, that's when things go bad. And that's where I've seen in my past the abuses of addiction, and in any capacity. I see why in poverty a lot of people run to substance. They're escaping their feeling that they're processing on the inside. But for her, having the confidence to go against the grain and to think about outside the box, it's something we talk about on a daily. We talked about it this morning when I dropped her off, and to have the confidence to know that even though the environment around me, whether it's the weather, whether it's my friends, whether it's homework,
politics,
whether it's, yeah, amen to that one.
Let's talk about politics.
Yeah. But whether she's, not feeling good, she's got to show up in that simple saying. I hope that she has that voice later on down the way of me telling her it's easy to take what the world gives you and just be and just be, right? But to go against it, know that you can alter it and you can change it and you can move in the direction you want to. I think it all starts within the mind and your environment, right? Again, it goes back to my mother, knowing that she never really pressed into me, to be the way I am. She just showed me that, hey, when you work hard for something, you can achieve great things,
led by example.
Yeah. So from there, it's like, I try to voice certain sayings inside her, Adrena, in the mornings, and we talk at night when we read and stuff like that. We have conversations, but it's just really getting her to understand that being a free thinker and knowing that you can control your mind and you control your thoughts in every situation, right? Even though you may be sad because your friend's mean to you at school. We had one of those situations. And it's like, well, let's slow down a little bit. Let's take some time to really think about that. And I don't think our education system really teaches people to filter and understand how the brain works and understand that, yeah, it's natural to feel hurt or harmed, and that's okay. But we can't get stuck there. And more importantly, it's like, let's not focus on the negative. Let's actually focus on what can get us to the positive.
That's
right?
Great. If you're really if you're a big stoic guy and a great father, I can tell, I suggest this to everybody. There's a guy named Ryan Holiday, huge stoic. He's an author, but he has an email that I receive every day called The Daily Dad. I really, really suggest that to any father. It literally takes, I'm not a big reader. It takes 30 seconds and it kicks you out like a stoic way to approach your children and that as a father. So I suggest that to anybody. It's called Daily Dad. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, you'll have to send that to me.
Yeah, there's a book too. It's so interesting, and we're all fathers to young children. I have a 4, 7, and 9-year-old, and my 9-year-old was really upset by what another kid said to him. Really upset, really upset. Like, started getting into a fight. This was after football practice, and found out what the other kid said to him. And, it was a pretty screwed up thing to say. And I could see he was hurt by it. And, I had to sit on it for a while, because there's a lot of different ways you could approach that conversation. You could say, oh, it's okay, or don't listen to him. But what I realized was that he believed what the other kid had said, and that's for me, it's kind of heartbreaking. But for him, he saw that, and he saw that in himself. And so I pointed that out to him. I was like, the reason why this bothers you so much is because there's a part of it that you believe is true. Now, do you believe that's true? And he sat with it. I was like, because I don't believe it's true. And in this world, there's, billions of people, and they're all going to have every variation of opinion of you. But the opinion that matters is your opinion of yourself and the actions that you take upon your opinion. So before internalizing somebody else's comments, remember who you truly are, because otherwise there's a lot of mean people in this world. There's a lot of great people, and lots of times mean things are said and they're not meant to be mean. But you really have to understand, emotionally of how you're going to perceive those items. And when they do bother you, sit with it, think about it, think why that bothers you. And if there is some truth to it, then you know what to do to make those corrections. So as adults, it's no different. I think there's this perception once you get older, and as a child, you think, oh, adults have it figured out. And obviously as adults, we realize nobody has it figured out. But I think the biggest thing is we all still are just grown adult children, but our moods are now more static, meaning that if we're, the grumpy person, we're more grumpy all the time. If we're a happy person, it's more happy all the time, versus this wide array of roller coasters of emotions. And I think recognizing that, and that those things can change. So yeah, I love what you tell your daughter, because I think it's so important. It's not taught at school, and emotional regulations and the ability to speak your truth, speak honestly, openly about things that you believe in, that you've become educated to your best of abilities on, and being able to state those things in a factual manner without, preaching on somebody. It's one of those core characteristics that I hope starts making a larger trend today. It's not just about, sports are great, but it's the fundamentals and disciplines of sports and the challenges of sports that are the most crucial thing. Winning teaches you nothing besides the fact that winning feels really good. Like winning does feel really good. Yeah. I never want to lose. I hate losing. Me too. I learn something every time I lose. Amen. Every single loss. And the harder the loss, the more the lessons. And the sooner you realize that, you're bringing up, projects, going through hell and back. Yeah, absolutely. But if you can zoom out and see where you want to be 10 years from now, I love doing this exercise. Pick a point in time. Picture yourself doing the same thing that you're doing right now, same habits, same everything in 10 years from now. And if you don't see the person that you want to see, you know how to make those changes. And I think the problem is we have things that pop up during the day. We're uncomfortable, so we don't want to do those items. But if you can have that 10-year vision of yourself, knowing that in 10 years from now, all the stuff you did in the middle, you're not going to feel those things anymore. So being able to get up, do the work, treat people respectfully, do those things that make you feel uncomfortable, because at the end of the day, the 10 years is going to be here whether you want it or not. So yeah, man, I just love this whole line of thinking.
You know what has helped me recently, and I just started doing this because I think it was probably Ryan Holiday, but as a parent becomes one of the ways that I've used this is everything that you've said is accurate, obviously, because I know this to be true. Someone said something negative or something happens negative, and I know as an adult, I can choose to internalize that, or I can think about it, learn. All that's true. It's hard. I think one of the things that has helped me a little bit, which is still difficult, but is imagine your daughter or your son going through this 10, 15 years from now. How would you want to see them react? Because if you want, this is every day. This is somebody who wakes up and has a drinking problem, or somebody who wakes up and has a gambling, or someone who wakes up and just is really bad with people and it's affecting their lives. Imagine your child going through that, and then try to emulate and try to show them through your actions how you want them to act, and it's going to help you, but it's going to help them. And that's what I've tried to do.
That's really good. That's hard, really good.
Yeah. Having those daily, practices and ideologies and systems are kind of the code that I think we ingrain in ourselves. And the more empathetic ones, the more ones that are going to be impactful for your situation. A tool that I use too, kind of similar to what you just said, is anytime I'm having a difficult time with somebody, whether they did something wrong, made a mistake, it cost me money, let's say, or time. I try to sit there and think about it. It's like, what if Adrena made that mistake? How would I want somebody to treat her, given the fact that she will make mistakes? She probably might, you never know. She may make that same mistake, but more than likely, she's going to make a mistake, and there's going to be somebody sitting on the other side of that table. And that's where it does kind of bring you down to earth. It kind of, it brings you back to your fundamentals of it's easy when you get stressed to kind of let those emotions take over. I practice it. I'm not going to tell you I'm perfect. But just like most things, it's like, between stress, anxiety, fear, all the things that come with playing the game that we're playing, guys will, if they don't, I know too, you talked about working out, but that's like a necessity to me. I figured it out that if I don't work out and I have a lot of stress and I'm not taking care of myself, those interactions that when bad stuff happens, they're going to intensify my emotions. I'm going to allow that. And again, going back to the practices of stoicism, it's like, hey, the more you're in control, and it's a constant practice. It's not just one thing, right? It's always evolving. And the things that we can do as fathers, as business owners, like you, working out this morning and doing those things that that make you feel better, also play a big direct correlation to how you're going to handle these situations, and utilizing those tools and these ideologies and stacking them and putting forth good energy into the universe. These are all great things where, I wish somebody would have been telling me these things. Right?
Same.
It's like this podcast. It's like, man, I looked online and you guys have such great content, and again, going back to wanting to learn and wanting to evolve and trying to be the best version of yourself and always being a student, man. I always go back to that. And I think that those are good fundamentals to kind of go back to what you talked about with how do I instill that is just having that fundamental mindset of like, I want to learn, I want to be better. And I'm okay with owning up some mistakes, and I'm okay with learning through, trial by error, and knowing that I'll have another opportunity and having that confidence. It's all great things, man. And I applaud you guys, obviously, with what you guys have built. And, definitely wish there was more guys like you guys in the industry.
Well, wish there was more guys like you. I mean, seriously, like we haven't even talked about what you've done, but I do want to talk about the habits and the habit stacking and how people become successful. And this is just,
so yeah,
this is my thought. And it's a difference. And it's such a foreign idea until you actually do it. But doing things to make money and just focusing on that. And the reason why that never leads, you may get rich from that, but it's almost certainly not going to lead to success. And the example is I work out now, one, for my mental health. That's the primary focus. Number two is for physical health. Number three is because I love it. Fourth is because of the physique changes. If you're going in purely on a physique focus, you're going to be ignoring all the most important factors of it. The physique is an output of it. And I like to put this in similar lights to building a business or making money. If your sole focus is on making money, sure, you may find it, but it's going to be a hollow experience most of the time. Now, if you take the disciplines of creating good culture, treating people well, becoming a student, then becoming a master of that profession, the things not only become easier and more enjoyable, the money will follow. It absolutely will, all the time, good markets, bad markets. But if you're just focusing on that as the pillar, you're missing the entire process of it. And habits in my life have become even more crucial. It was a couple years ago, and I couldn't come home without getting upset instantly. Kids would come up to me. I'm dealing with phone calls, and my brain was just static. It was just like the Atari game Pong, just ding, 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 just really high cortisol levels. I couldn't focus, so I started practicing breathing. Did it work day one? No. It took about 2 months of daily breathing practices. Now I incorporate that with sauna, cold plunge, going to the gym, listening to calm music or meditative music, doing NSDR, which is basically a 10-minute awake nap. You should look it up. Yoga Nidra is what it's called. But it's not for this instant result of feeling better. It's for the long game of building habits, finding presence in your life. The more you can be present and focus on a topic, the clarity will come. And I think that if you're living your life, letting things being thrown at you, absorbing what the world is giving you, you're going to have a really, really tough time ever finding yourself. And that's why that's why there's the average. It's the average people doing average things because they think that's what they're supposed to do versus doing the hard things and finding enjoyment in them. I mean, at this point, I was thinking about it last night, hobbies and everything. I'm like, working out's my hobby. Like it's something that's enjoyable. I love doing it, but I've built it to a place where it's not a grind. I find the enjoyment of the people that are there. I have great conversations. I'm learning something. I'm constantly challenging myself. And sure, at the end of the day, I get a six-pack out of it. That's wonderful, but that is not the reason for doing it. That is just, the byproduct of the work that's gone into it. So I think for anybody listening out there, it's super slow to start with on any type of real journey. If you're going to want real success, you have to build the foundation. That nothing can stay structurally sound without a solid foundation. And those foundations are built in daily habits. And those daily habits occur whether you want to do them or not. Yesterday, I was driving by 4:15 a.m. I was still in the sauna and cold plunge in the morning because it's a habit. I know I'm going to miss out on a little bit of extra sleep, but those habits are so crucial and they're a win. And it's a way to validate to myself that I am in control, not the other way around. I am not going to let the environment dictate my circumstances. I am going to be the one that dictates my environment. So yeah, it's just, these things are just, they seem so simple, but 15-minute habit practice a day will change your life. And then you stack those on top of each other and it becomes exponential.
I do want to get, I agree with all that.
Yeah. Let's get into some business stuff. How do we get rich here, Jacob?
One thing I don't want to let go of, because we were just talking about it right before that, is that stoic reaction of, I tried looking it up here. I wasn't on Facebook. I can't find the quote, but it's not what happens in your life. It literally is. Your life is 0% of what happens. It is 100% of how you react to what happens. And I read these stoic things every day, and it's so hard, but that's basically what you're saying.
But look at that tool of whatever the app sending you things, like your daily routines, whether it's working out or listening to a podcast or having this stoic app of pouring, information, quality backed information that is going to change your perception of that day, that situation. But definitely going back to what you said of even me, my background in kinesiology and human performance, it's a hack of life. And I'm so blessed and thankful that I grew up as an athlete. If you look back, through our history, we're hunters and gatherers by nature, right? Our genetic code was built basically to survive, right? Our body is the smartest mechanism on the world, organism, and it will do whatever needs to be done to survive. That's evolution. But at the fundamental aspect of it, we need to move, right? Our body needs to move. It's good for our body. It's good for spirit. It's good for many of things. And I think that having the background of being an athlete and playing at that at a collegiate level, whether it was high, low, medium, or not, it gave me the routine of knowing that I'm never fully alive. I'm never fully myself until I get the sweat. Until I call it chasing the sweat, and once that hits, I feel ready to go. Mm-hmm. But going back from a scientific standpoint, it's there in the research. I mean, other countries are utilizing it for, to combat, depression and anxiety. And I mean, you can go down the list, but, we talk about investing into, from a financial aspect, but I guarantee you there's somebody laying in a hospital room right now that has tons of money and they can't buy more time, and you only do that by taking care of, today, having those quality habits and knowing the value of it and putting it before almost anything else, and I'm very, very, very thankful to have that and knowing that I had that routine, you played, know what it's like. Yeah. Hey, every day you get up, you kind of have that routine of getting up, getting going, putting in the time. You're doing it now. And most successful people in today's world are moving their bodies in some capacities. And it's like, everybody's looking for that niche of what's this programming or these modalities? And I always tell people, hey, whatever works for you, there's something called the placebo effect. It's real. It's there. Mm-hmm. And if it makes you feel good, do it. If it's healthy, it's supporting, you in some capacity, or you think it is, that's the key. And it's hard to show up every day.
The bar's been set so low too, because really it's just about getting moving. I mean, so many people are like, should I have done 4 sets or 5 sets? It's like,
my gosh, do you track your macros?
The fact that you're moving, you're ahead of 90% of the country.
To your point, sweat every day. If you're going on a diet, don't worry about your freaking macros. I don't track my macros. I don't care. I'm trying to eat some protein, non-processed food, and feel good. If I eat something and I don't feel good after it, I'm going to take note of that, and I might not eat that again. If I'm going to eat something that's heavy, I'm going to know that my day is going to be low frequency after, and that's something that that's a trade-off for me for this delicious plate of pasta. Sure, but you have to, you can't just overwhelm yourself. I mean, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
I love that phrase.
I don't know who I was listening to. I don't know. It was Tim Ferriss, but a coach basically said, people that are incredibly out of shape and, I go to the gym for an hour, I stand on the treadmill. How about this? But then I don't go for another week. How about this? How about you go to the gym, you're there for 5 minutes and then you leave. At 5 minutes, that alarm goes off. You get out of there. But guess what you just did? You got up, you got your clothes on, you got mentally prepared. You went in there, you felt the uncomfortableness of seeing yourself in a mirror, going to the gym. You went and you showed up. Now do it again. Now do it again. Now do it again. And eventually you're going to want to do more. Eventually there's going to be an opportunity there for you to dive into it and become more of a specialist in it. But at the beginning, just do it. I have to remind myself all the time, like, because I'm interested in new businesses, new topics. I'm like, oh, it's so overwhelming. How do I make $10 billion in crypto today? Well, it's like, how about I study one chart of Bitcoin and I see what the market does and understand fundamentals to that, or understanding a construction business or understanding anything. It's just find something and really learn it. People are trying to do more when less is oftentimes more. It's quality over quantity, bar none. And I think if you can just spend that time focusing on that, really learning it, wanting to learn it, have that brain body connection. I'm mentoring a guy that used to work for me. This is at Hy-Vee, and he's followed me for a while, and he set up some different types of physique training, fitness training, and he asked me to mentor him. And I'm happy to do it. I think he's going to help me build something out because I've wanted to do this for a while in more of like a professional fashion. But I told him there's three things why things aren't getting done. There's three reasons. One, you don't want to do it. Two, you're scared of doing it. Three, you don't know enough about the subject to do it. And I said, okay, so if it's number one, you don't want to do it, then you probably shouldn't be doing it unless there's a big reason why, and we're going to have to work on that. But if you don't want to do it, you're already starting off on this negative field. Like, it's the parent that forces their kid to go into football and they, want to become a gymnast. Like, going to be really hard to get over that if your mind is not into it. If it's fear, that's where the small habits come into practice. You take a one step forward. You start off in these little bites. Three, you don't know enough. Once again, you start off, you educate yourself. You don't start off with, how do I buy a $100 million apartment complex? You say, what's the fundamentals on, $100,000 home? And what does that look like? You start off in these small different chunks. So I feel like there's just there's those three things that stop people from doing those things. And once you identify those, then you can start to create an action plan of moving forward versus like, oh, I'm never going to get it.
Yeah. And I'll hit on a word like action. Like, I'm an action guy. I may not know the most about everything. I may not be the smartest guy in the room. I may not, specialize in whatever we're doing, but, taking that first step is critical to anything worthwhile. And a lot of people, they get stuck. Whatever it is, they make the excuse, they talk themselves out of it, but being of action is how you get to where you want to go. And I can tell you for myself that I never went to college. I never played, sports or whatever, thinking that I was going to end up doing what I do today. I don't think you guys knew you guys were going to be these
zero. This was not anywhere in my life script. Nowhere.
Right. But everything kind of stacked and correlated, came into your life. You evolved, you figured it out, and one thing led to another. And that's where a lot of kids right now, I think they get so fixated on, they have this dream, they have this goal, and then once, they get hit in the mouth, then they just give up. And then it's like, well, I better just do what the rest of the world is doing and go get a 9 to 5 and just be a good old boy,
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Is that Mike Tyson that said that?
Oh yeah.
Shout out, man.
I did not watch the scripted fight. No, I did not.
I see. I don't think it was scripted. I would be willing to bet though that Jake Paul took it easy on him and did not knock him out because of,
for sure. It was tough to watch, but
I don't think they wanted Mike Tyson to commit murder, so they had him back down a little bit.
I don't know.
Hey, it's real quick though. So let's move off the tears, because I've been close to tears a couple times here. Let's get into what Jacob does right now.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, you told us a lot of the background, man.
Yeah, a lot more to that, but in a simple fashion, I got out of, I exited one of my first startups, Hybrid Human Performance. I sold that in July.
Of this year?
Of this year.
Congrats.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. No, it was been in the industry, as you know, like I said, I started right out of college and built it up to where it was. And it got to a point where I felt like it was time to move on. And it was hard, having the passion and having the goals and being in an industry where, you know, we were probably one of the first in Lincoln to start doing that kind of training and offering it, you know, out. But yeah, we grew to, I think, roughly a little over 300 members. We had 12,000 square feet in the Speedway Village. I had watched two guys prior to me fail out or more. I mean, I think they're 2 or 3. And learning from them again, seeing and just being there for so long, I think it was time for me to take that leap and build out and take control for myself to want to, you know, have a crack at it. And, you know, we had a lot of success. I grew and had that exit. And then, you know, I think taking an internship at Nebraska kind of came out of the blue. And it was something that I had always, you know, kind of not dreamt of, but I definitely had curiosity at that level, helping and competing at a high level in any capacity, whether it's real estate, football, whatever. That's of interest to me. I love to see talented people compete at a high stage, and that gave me the ability to kind of close that chapter. And it was a great experience. Learned a lot, but yeah, sold the gym, took the internship. All the while, still had the contracting company kind of going, and I mean it's going. And
what's a revenue size that you guys are at for your contracting company?
We probably do close to 2.5.
Okay, cool, cool.
2.5 million, and we've been in business for about 4 years now.
How sweet is that? Like, you're mowing lawns at 10.
Gosh,
you probably didn't know what 2.5 million was at 10, but
yeah,
all of a sudden you're mowing lawns for $5, and now you're at 2.5 mil.
Let's back that up. You know, we know what that number is, right?
Yeah,
you're not taking that. Everybody just thinks you're taking that to the bank.
You weren't bragging. You weren't bragging.
I just got to step back because I think that's the first time I've ever even said that.
Oh, that's funny, and I appreciate you saying that.
You should own it. And
Jacob made 2.5 million last year. No, that is not even close to what that means, guys. Not even close.
Yeah.
But you didn't say that.
Yeah.
You know, we asked what your revenue was, and I appreciate the humble approach. But I mean, mowing lawns for $5 at 10, you still had to pay for the gas and the lawnmower, so you weren't making $5. We all understand that. But how sweet is it?
Oh man,
to be at 2.5 mil now.
Yeah, it's definitely humbling. It's definitely surreal. I think sometimes I look past the last 4 years and I wake up and I'm just like, man, where did the time go? Right? I didn't really take too much time to
process,
reflect, and celebrate and go and do all the things. It was just, you know,
what's celebrating? Yeah,
right.
We're bad at it.
Yeah, celebrating to me is going on a dangerous or aggressive hike. I know we've talked about that, but it's like let's go endure some more punishment. But no, I really don't know honestly how it all happened. I mean, I know by the grace of God and you know, my experiences and some luck, as you stated, Chris.
Everywhere has a little bit.
You know, I was put here in an opportunity and I seized it. I didn't know I was going to end up here. I didn't know. I mean, my whole life I'd done labor work up until I graduated. And here I am back in. You know, I got the college education to not have to work in labor. And that's kind of what I've specialized in now, right? Guys come to me when they need abundance of labor, right? So
tell us about it. What does that consist of? What are you doing for people?
You know, we do.
We're talking about hybrid contractors.
Yes, right? Yep. We started off in the residential space, which we would go to a house and do odds and ends, or, you know, some light remodeling. And then it got into, you know, demoing the stud and redesigning and permitting. And then it got into, you know, massive apartment complexes. You know, there's a big kind of influx of investors over the last probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 or 7 years. I don't know. I started in 20. So I know when I first started, there was only a couple guys chasing the bigger game, right, in the multifamily space. And maybe I'm wrong, but at least in my environment, there wasn't a whole lot of guys that I knew that were trying to go after these larger assets, you know, and they're great. You know, obviously, you know, it's economies of scale kind of thing, but, you know, to the downside, it's like, well, you better know what you're doing. You better have the right teams in place. You better have guys that are experienced and knowing that remodeling 30 to 60 units is a whole lot different than remodeling one house. And the margins and the swings and just seeing the value there. I can probably go back to my first year of books. I mean, we probably had 300 to 400 jobs, odds and ends.
Wow.
Whether it was cement, trees. I mean, we pride ourselves. I mean, again, I owned a part of a tree company, and we have stake in a cement company, and all these things. But going back,
we should talk about the tree company since we've started one as well.
Okay.
Partner with somebody. So if there's anything to synergize,
Yeah, so you're our competitors. So give us
actually, I think there'd be a lot of synergies because we just bought it's like a $850,000 crane. It can pull a tree from 180 feet away, reach over buildings. It's a sweet piece of equipment. So once again, 1 + 1 in this business equals 3. It's not the stock. It's not a zero sum. It's not a zero sum game here. Yeah. It really isn't.
No. And I'll tell you right now, whatever you made, financially invested into that tree company, it's going to be worthwhile. I can tell you that. And, shout out to Blue Ox and Eddie Linkus. He gave me an opportunity. Another guy that was kind of vital in a pivotal moment in my young career. And we took that company, I think, from like 500 to 2.5, within a short term. And then I exited that. And that was kind of my seed money to go into my gym and my contracting. And then contracting led to real estate. And again, there was probably a couple other odds and ends in between, but we won't get stuck there. But yeah, service-based businesses, kind of looking at the holistic approach of a property. Going to an asset and knowing that, hey, as an investor, I can bring them solutions and many solutions, which will in turn probably save them time and money if I do it right, is kind of the whole collage of things that I provide. Everything is based off time, right, as a fundamental. And then you have your dollar amount, and usually they're correlated, right? You can't usually get something fast, worthwhile. You guys know that whole analogy of, cheap and quick and expensive. We're not cheap. We're very fast. We're very efficient. We have a lot of history and catalogs of projects and growing on alongside of Aero Capital. Shout out to Aero Capital and Andrew Ross. Obviously, you guys do business with them guys, and they've been obviously a staple for me and helped me grow to the scale that I've been able to. And they gave me an opportunity, they took a chance on me, and I think it panned out. And we do a lot of their larger, more rougher projects and multifaceted, but that's what we chase. We chase the larger assets that, are a little more complex because there's not a lot of guys that are capable of competing in that arena, right? You probably know 100 guys that can do a couple houses and, can flip a place for you and renovate. But we try to obviously differentiate ourselves in the marketplace, as I know you guys have too.
Yeah. How many units can you turn in a month?
Obviously everything's subject to, right? What's the scope of work? But safely, probably, I want to say 6 to 10, depending on the square footage. And we're talking pretty mild, like it's not just
flooring paint.
Yeah, no, and again, everything is subject to the scope of work, right?
Yep.
But yeah, we have the capacities to have large amounts of labor moving and synchronizing. And I'm a big systems guy, and having the CRMs, the softwares that I need to support.
What are some that you utilize?
Company Cam, and then Builder Trend is kind of our CRM.
Builder Trend, yeah.
Builder Trend's been amazing for us. Has everything on there, and it makes it really easy to communicate with my staff and our subs, the ones that we do utilize sometimes, as well as the client. It gives them kind of a peace of mind to see kind of what's going on in kind of a daily fashion. They can do daily logs and create photos and notes, and they can communicate with us so that we have that integration of where it's more of a relationship than a transaction. And as you guys know, obviously relationships are the most important thing. And
that's not just a phrase. I've learned that the hard way. When I got started in this, you meet with a banker, you meet the insurance person, you meet the contractor. I'm a relationships person. And sometimes that's just a phrase, but the longer you do it, you realize it really drives everything.
People want to be seen. People want to be heard. People want to be liked.
Yeah. It's cool to say, right?
Yeah.
But
people want to be treated well.
Yeah. And everything's correlated to your perception of that person and that individual and who you know about them, and then your experience. my relationships with people, I don't take lightly, and I've always been a people first person, and I can relate to a lot of people because I've been a lot of different places and I've tried a lot of different things, and, but yeah, going back to that, I mean, we specialize in kind of the larger assets. We love going to an apartment complex and, taking it over essentially. There's one in Lincoln, I can tell you right now, is one of our first biggest ones. And, it's right off 27th and Vine. They called it the Shoe. I think it's 42 units. And man, that was probably, it was a full circle effect because I had grown up in that neighborhood. And it was like,
that's cool.
I mean,
that is cool.
Yeah. I mean, you can talk to most people down there. They'll tell you like, that's a place you stay away from, prostitution, drug dealers, multiple in one apartment complex competing, you name it. I mean, needles outside, you guys come across stuff like this in the value add space. But, I've rode my bike across that place hundreds of times, and an investor bought it, and, we got the contract on it, and, you should see it now. I mean, it makes me feel really good that whole neighborhood has changed because somebody decided, hey, I want to take this. And yeah, it was probably good for business, but it was a process. It was a big risk. And the fact that we were able to, help them get to that end point. And now, the thing's cash flowing like crazy, and it all worked out. And I learned a lot. But that was probably the first one where it was like, okay, I don't need 400 jobs. I need probably 30 to 40. And just starting to think and knowing that, you have the capital, and again, learning from your mistakes and seeing where we could be more efficient or differentiate ourselves from the competition in the market space. And then, yeah, we started 4 years ago. Here we are today. And that's kind of where I'm headed, and I've always done multiple things. I've always had the gym and did the tree service. I always did this and then that. Right now, real estate correlates and runs congruent with my contracting, right? You guys know in most capacities, when you're an owner, at some point, if you're chasing the game, the Class C or lower or any asset for that matter, at some point, somebody's got to go touch it and modify it.
Oh, yeah.
And you're, obviously trying to alter its performance in some way. And you only do that by, increasing its value in some capacity.
I think that it's, look, we all like money. I don't think it's bad to say that. I saw Daniel Tosh stand up the other day. It was a clip from like 20 years ago. You know who Daniel Tosh is? Tosh 0.0 or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was a stand-up bit, and he's like, everyone's telling me that money doesn't make you happy. And he's like, I guess, but I can tell you one thing that is guaranteed not to make you happy: poverty. And I'm not trying, this isn't an economic or emotional thing, but like, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm doing this so I have more money so I can make better decisions for me, for my daughter, for my family. One of the things you said earlier, which I think is lost a lot of times, is outside of the money, is Colin and I were on site yesterday at a place that we have. And when we bought this place,
dump.
It was really bad. And not only was it bad, but it is
Heavy value add.
It is massive. It is multiple city blocks.
It's 45 buildings.
And
yeah, it's big.
It allowed for
it's a neighborhood.
It
basically.
Is. And because of how large it was, it brought down the neighborhood. Yeah. And so it is going to be successful financially. It'll be successful for us. It'll be successful for our investors, and all that's important. But you can't lose that rewarding feeling of driving through a place and saying, holy cow, we were able to change this to not only something that at first when we drove through, there were gunshots, there were prostitution, there was death. Yeah. Now you drive through, you see a mom carrying her kid into her house because it's nice and safe and clean. You have a police department telling you, damn, you guys, I'm so happy for what you've done here. And now the neighbors around the neighborhood are like, wow, this neighborhood's changed so much. So yes, money's great, but people lose, they lose how much effect you have on revitalizing areas and properties.
Yeah. Value add is now just this loose term, which is correlated to how do you increase the NOI. Value add is adding value. What is valuable? Cleaner, safer, better, more habitable product. that is value. It is not taking the same lemon and just squeezing it harder. It is planting a lemon tree. That is creating value. And same thing goes in real estate. Lipstick on a pig is called that for a reason. You're not creating value, at least not long-lasting value. So it's these phrases are out there, they get thrown out, but really understanding the true meaning of those, and that these are people's homes. In those homes, those people have jobs that they go to. Their home life affects how they work and how they act and how they behave. It's the butterfly effect. It really is, one good action can lead to multiple. The same thing with a negative action. People don't want to be taken advantage of. And if you are taking care of individuals, sure, at the end of the day, these rents go up. People are willing to pay for that because there is value associated with it.
Yeah. It goes back to your statement you made about the long term, right? I see and had chased successful investors. When I first started, it was like, who can I find? I mean, that's how I came across Andrew and Arrow. Had some friends, kind of around and had worked for them. But long story short, setting the fundamental to play the long game, right? If you're playing the long game on an asset or in a space, you want to make sure that your reputation is good, right? And that you're doing the right thing. And the right thing is not always the easy thing, right? It's
rarely is.
It's usually the hard thing, or more importantly, it's usually the costly thing. It's going to cost you money, right? But the easy thing to go in and do the lipstick, and you kind of heard that, phrase through, it's thrown around. And I've seen guys that do that. Not to say that they don't have success, but I don't necessarily think that they're too happy doing what they're doing, because when you play short-sighted, it usually will end up catching up to you one way or the other.
You're also playing a market game. You're timing the market in those situations. If you create a valuable product, even in this market, which I would say is somewhat sort of a recession, the higher quality assets, one, the owners can hold on to, or they just maintain a higher value because it's a better product. These ones that were just chased on, we're going to pump these rents with crappy flooring, crappy paint, and just really take advantage of this bubble. You see the prices on those properties drop precipitously, and them not being able to be traded or sold, and people stuck in them because people are no longer blind. It's not just this arbitrage, this gambling type game of playing the market. Value is understood, and eventually it'll come to fruition where you'll be able to see that. You can't be fooled.
There's a large company, no names. They own a bunch of assets here, other places we invest in, and they had that model. Their model was milk out as much cash flow as possible, do the very bare minimum on maintenance and deferred maintenance or whatever, and just let these people live in crap holes. And it worked for them because they made a decent amount of money. Well, that caught up to them. And so not only can they not sell their assets because that's their name now, because you never know what you're buying, what's behind the wall, but also we were looking at a couple of their assets to buy, and we talked to property managers who were going to take over for us, and they're like, we will not manage anything that they've ever owned because we know that they brought no value. And so we're signing up for a wild card. So, I mean, that's a good example of it. Cash and money can be a short-term thing if you're not worried about the long-term relationships and actually adding value.
Yeah, and for the guys that do try to play the I'm going to squeeze all the juice out of the lemon and just kick it down the road to somebody else, you're taking advantage of somebody younger more than likely. You're giving a deal to somebody that doesn't know any better, because guys that are experienced and seasoned know enough to vet who they purchase from, right? A lot of times it's like, you're looking at this asset and it can look good from the outside. They put the lipstick on, but underneath it, it's like your reputation lies there, right? If you're going to play the long game, we know that you're going to do it right. But to support what you said, Chris, it's easier to do the right thing, because when it does come time to sell that, you have a list of guys that are right there that know and trust Chris that, hey, I'm buying from these guys. They're probably going to want to do more than one deal with me throughout our engagement, right? And I think a lot of times people get fixated on the dollar amounts as opposed to what can happen in volume. Like I always tell my clients in contracting and in anything, even in the training, I don't just want to do one deal. I want to do 100 deals. So why would I ever short side you or myself into looking and valuing the money aspect? I would always correlate relationships based on, you can find out who you're in business with by how they manage your financial interaction, right? A lot of times guys will, choose the money over a relationship. I see it
all the time.
And it's just like, that's short-sighted,
It's
man.
very short-sighted. They're not, you can always make more money, and making more money is hard. It takes work. But you know what's impossible to rebuild is a reputation. It is nearly impossible. And I think that people really need to think about that when having those short-sighted decisions. Sure, you want to make more money. Sure, it's really, really important. This goes back to the beginning of how can you, in empathy, utilized in thinking from the other person's perspective, having empathy, meaning putting yourself in their shoes, going through that same transactional process from their eyes. If that is fair and you feel that there's going to be something positive for them, then you should proceed. But if it's not, then you really need to think about it. And I think oftentimes, like if the same offer, it's always such a fun thought experiment. Chris is really good at doing this, but having a conversation and then just switching these tables of like, well, what if this was this? And then, man, it's like the turntable stop. It's like, whoa, wait. You're saying, you're asking me if I would buy my property at that price for this and that? Well, of course I wouldn't do that. Well, thank you. Okay, we've level set the playing field. Now we can start a conversation.
Yeah.
Jacob, this has been fun, man. I think we could talk forever.
I know, we scratched the surface, man.
I know, dude.
Yeah.
I know.
Definitely. Time went by pretty quick here.
Dude,
I
did.
appreciate being on. Obviously, it's good to be around other people motivated and stuff, but it's a great reminder of, setting your goals and keeping your fatherhood into perspective, and when you're making decisions. And I don't know, man, this has been fantastic. I wish it was longer.
Yeah, same, man.
Yeah,
Same.
yeah.
Jacob, how can people get a hold of you, and who would you like to connect with?
I don't market too much.
Yeah.
Thankfully we're not really searching or desperate for work. My platforms, I think it's Sir_Jacob at Instagram, and then Jacob Cervantes at Facebook. Sometimes I'm on there, sometimes I'm not. Yeah, you can definitely find me on those platforms. But I appreciate you guys having me, and more so, thank you guys for putting this platform together for other people like myself to find and learn and develop and grow. And can't thank you guys enough, and kudos to all the success you guys had. I mean, look at, you just said you bought a whole neighborhood, and it's just, sometimes you can't even, it's like you say it like it's something small, but some people's biggest purchase, as is their house. And I think the work that we're doing is really directly correlated to how people are living, and specifically in the value add in places that I grew up. So it means a lot to me, and just thanks again, man, for all you guys have done, because I've been able to watch from the sideline and learn and hear about the great things that you guys have been doing. And it's given me the curiosity to want to grow more and do things. And knowing that, I have access to you guys definitely means a lot. So
yeah, no, and I appreciate your authenticity. You're incredibly wise for your young age. It's really, really cool. So I appreciate you just opening up and having a truly authentic conversation here. So no egos. I love it, man. All right, brother.
Take care.
All right. Thanks, man.